I'm all worked up right now. Oh, man. I had to stop what I was doing. I was sitting here reading this on my phone. Then I had to run to my computer. And I said, I haven't made any videos on the Second Amendment in a while. And I was like, this definitely calls for a video. So, alright. New Jersey gun laws. Let me pull this article up again. I don't think I've ever read anything so contradictory, so illogical. With such so many circular arguments. I mean, it's insane. It's like you make a point and then you immediately contradict it with redundancy, right? It's like it's like if I made a statement that I don't know. Nobody dies in car accidents anymore because we have airbags, right? So we should get rid of the ticket for not wearing a seatbelt because airbags save lives, right? Nobody dies from not having a seatbelt anymore. So it's stupid to have a law that says everybody should wear a seatbelt, right? And I'm not saying that people don't die solely because of airbags. I'm just throwing up a hypothetical. Now, if I say that, right, if I follow it with, oh, but we have to have seatbelts, we need to keep the seatbelt law in place, it's like, why? You just got finished saying that the seatbelts were superfluous to whether somebody lives or die in a car accident because we have airbags, right? So why do you still want this to be in place? Oh, just in case. It's like New Jersey's background check system. The redundancy of it. Oh, we want a second look. I remember there was a representative in New Jersey in one of their, town hall council, and things in Trenton, and when they were doing the whole anti-gun thing. And I remember he was like, well, we want a second look. And it's like a second look when you go to get a permit. First off, you got to get a permit to purchase in New Jersey. You can't just walk into the gun store and buy a gun. So you have to go before your police station, right? After going and getting, your little paperwork and you going through another background check and giving references. And they send letters to the references that you gave. And then they got to write and say, oh, this person is competent, blah, 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 to have a firearm. Then that's got to go back to the police station, right? And that's if you have friends that actually, give it up, on time, that don't, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it, and then they don't do it, and then you're sitting around waiting, and then you go to the police station, and they're like, oh, we haven't got this yet, so we can't move forward with your permit. You got to go through all that dumbness. So your Second Amendment right in New Jersey is hindered by whether you have reliable people to send stuff back. People may be good-hearted people and everything else. They go to church every day. They love Jesus Christ. But that doesn't mean that, they're going to stop watching, Jersey Shore and take the time to actually fill out, your application. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, you know how people can get sometimes when you need something done and it's important to you, but it's not important to them. That just becomes an issue, right? So then you got to go, to your CVS, and then you got to get a money order, and then you got to, for the state trooper and your local township and go through the process. And then they call you back. At least my township is a reasonable amount of time, but other townships I've heard nightmares where it's not a reasonable amount of time. So you got to go through all this just to get a handgun permit. And then when you get the handgun permit, what else do they do? So you get the background check from your local municipality. You get the background check from the state troopers. They got to give you the green light. And then when you go to pick up the firearm which is the only background check that should be necessary and is necessary in every other state. When you go to the dealership to pick up the firearm in New Jersey, you got to go through another background check, which is the NICS background check. So that's 3 background checks in New Jersey that you go through. And this article is referencing to, give me 1 second, let me pull it. Actually, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to pull it up real quick because I can't seem to find it. All right, so here's the article. The article is, what is this on? MyCentralJersey.com, story opinion readers 2015. I got all the hash marks in there. 0206, nothing Nazified, New Jersey gun laws, right? And it says, in the title of the piece is called Letter Nothing Nazified About New Jersey Gun Laws. Now, this is in response to a open letter that was written by, where is this at? Mr. Bruce Eden in January 30th, right? And this is the letter, or I'm not going to read the letter that he wrote. I'm just going to read the response that he wrote, because all the people who are pro Second Amendment, pro gun, you know, we already know the points that the vast majority of us agree with. So I'm not going to go through and read his letter. But I'm just going to read the response. And you already know, the people who are pro Second Amendment, you already know where this is going. Okay? Right? You already know the intellectual dishonesty that you're going to get ready to hear. And I'm going to stop reading when I hear something that has to be addressed, and I'm just going to inject my opinion, and then I'll you know, break down what's so stupid about what the person is saying, and then I'll continue reading. So the piece starts off, and let me read the title again. Letter, Nothing Nazified About New Jersey Gun Laws. Anyone having the audacity to use the term Nazi in the same sentence with New Jersey or any state in the U.S. is without a doubt at least afflicted with acute paranoia. To write Nazi gun laws, a model for New Jersey, as stated by Mr. Bruce Eden in his in his January 30th letter, is to ignore the simple fact that we are not living in Nazi Germany, but in the United States of America. Now, that first part, it's like, obviously he didn't literally mean that America, you know, is Nazi Germany. He's talking about the laws and the restrictive laws, because Germany, right before the Nazis, you know, took over power, you know, they basically created a gun control legislation, which basically had everybody register their guns. And then when they wanted to take over the country to make sure that people could not fight back their party, they confiscated everybody's guns. That's the point. If you want to play semantics and act like you don't know what Mr. Bruce Eden is talking about, fine, go ahead. But this is one of the main reasons why you can never have intelligent conversations with anti-gunners, because anti-gunners are you know, haplophobes, and they just don't like guns, and they're going to the idea is not to reason with them, and that they're going to understand, and they're going to make, you know, state their case, and it's like the court of law, and, you know, whoever has the strongest valid point wins. They don't care about making a valid point. Okay, they just they contradict themselves in everything that they say. Now let me continue before I get off in my little tirade and diatribe. I'm not trying to do all that. Okay, but because I'll probably do that as I'm reading this. This person continues. Our laws were established by legislation, and honestly, it makes me feel like there's a woman that wrote this, because I read a lot of women's articles and stuff like that, and it really makes me feel like it's a woman that wrote this. Just the way that it's laid out, but that's just a whole different topic. But anyway, our laws were established by legislation of the people, by the people, and for the people. In his zeal to defend the NRA and not our Second Amendment rights, Mr. Eden fails to realize that background checks on buying a home, registering a car, or boarding a plane are essential for our safety, established by our business community and guaranteed by our laws. Can you imagine anyone boarding a plane without somewhat believing that the plane has been inspected, the pilot is licensed, and the plane is safe and insured? Isn't it a good thing that our government regulations require these safety procedures before the plane is authorized to take off? Operating a automobile without a license and insurance is against the law also, and in keeping with safety on our streets and highways. Now, the problem with this paragraph is the regulations are already in place. The background checks are already in place. So to even suggest or imply that we don't need regulations, or that we don't have regulations already in place, is intellectually dishonest. And then to even suggest that Mr. Eden was saying, yes, we shouldn't have any regulations at all. It's a straw man. It's a straw man just all day, right? Continuing. Owning a gun does not keep us safe, but our laws are essential for our safety. This is not rocket science, just basic common sense, whereas we all should feel safe in our homes from criminals and also from the deranged. I agree with that. We should feel safe in our homes from criminals and from the deranged. But notice that the paragraph will start off with owning a gun does not keep us safe. Why wouldn't owning a gun keep you safe from criminals and the deranged? Continuing, although having a gun may provide only a sense of security, no, it's not a sense of security, it's actually real security, because there's real bullets coming out of the barrel end of that gun. It's still a First Amendment right for all Americans. It's still a First Amendment right although having a gun may provide only a sense of security, it's still a First Amendment right for all Americans. No, it's a Second Amendment right. This person doesn't even know the Constitution. They're not even getting the rights right. The First Amendment is freedom of speech. The Second Amendment is, right to keep and bear arms. Jesus, man. Knowing that our neighbor cannot legally own multiple high-powered weapons or explosives makes my family's odds for safety far more favorable than having any weapons of protection in my own home. So, in other words, the idea is to bar this, basically destroy the Second Amendment, because that makes me feel safer, right? Despite somebody else's desire to want to protect themselves with firearms from the criminals and the deranged, this person, the third person, so you got the criminal, you got the gun owner, and then you got the anti-gun owner. The gun owner is essentially at this point more worried about his neighbor who's gone through the background checks having weapons in the home than they are about the criminals and the deranged people who don't go through background checks. Or the deranged people, they shouldn't have access to it. But I'm saying the criminals, they don't go through the background checks. Right? Continuing. Inalienable rights and laws together provides for a safer environment for us all, and having 100 guns in every household. Now, I got a problem with this statement right here, because essentially, this is one of those, giving up liberty for security. That's essentially what this is. Because I don't trust my neighbor, but I trust the state and I trust the police. I mean, this is like a person that does not understand the context of history. I mean, that's just what this person is. They don't understand the context of history. And then, the owning 100 guns in every household. First off, that's a nice little straw man, nice little exaggeration. How many gun owners do you think have 100 guns in their household? There's gun dealers that don't have 100 guns in their household. Okay? But to throw up 100 guns in the household, and even if a person had 100 guns in the household, what would it matter if these people went through the background checks, especially the very strenuous and rigorous background checks that New Jersey has? What would it matter if they had 100 guns in their house if they went through the background checks? See, the issue is they don't like guns and they don't like people with guns. It's not a matter of the background checks. Because a person goes through the background checks, and now the argument is, well, I don't like the fact that they have 100 guns in their house. What does it matter? They went through the background checks. I don't see what your problem is. Continuing. As for background checks, anyone can purchase a firearm on the internet or at most gun shows just about anywhere in the South these days without any real background check. That is not true. You know, the first part, anyone can purchase a firearm on the internet. Yeah, you can purchase a firearm on the internet, and it has to go to a licensed dealer as it's transported to, you know, whatever state. If you're not in the same state, it has to go to a dealer. They cannot send the gun, you know, directly to your house. They haven't been able to do that since the days of Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, where you could buy a Tommy gun and have it mailed to your front doorstep. That doesn't exist anymore. So the idea of now the internet's here, and you can, buy. Oh, I can buy a firearm online. Yeah, I can buy a firearm online. And in New Jersey, I can't. It's not going to come to my house. It's going to go to a dealership, or excuse me, a firearms dealership, and then I have to get the pistol permit to go pick up the pistol. Or even if I go and I get a rifle or a shotgun, it goes to the FFL dealer, and then I have to go to the FFL dealer. That now they don't have the pistol permit process with rifles and shotguns, but then I have to go to the FFL dealer and get a NICS background check when I pick it up. No matter what firearm I'm picking up, a dealer that I buy it from online can only send it to another dealer. And then that dealer, when I go to pick it up, I have to fill out paperwork and I have to get a background check. You know, so the stupid thing is this idea of the loopholes and no background checks existing doesn't even exist in New Jersey. Meaning, if I have a friend who has a firearms ID card, and I have a firearms ID card, and I want to sell him my handgun, guess what he has to do? He has to go to the police station, get another permit, so he has to go through the process all over again, background check, references, right, state trooper background check, so there's 2 background checks before he even gets the permit. Then when we get the permit, then we both have to go to the gun dealership in New Jersey, and then I have to transfer the firearm over to him, which a fee is going to be charged in order for him to pick up the firearm. Okay, that's the only way that he can buy a firearm from me. He has to get a firearms what do you want to call it? A permit to purchase. Just as though he was buying a brand new firearm from the dealer. All right. Now let's go to gun shows. Yes, there are plenty of states where somebody can show up at a gun show and sell a firearm to somebody else at the gun show. The stupid thing is that somebody selling a used firearm to somebody else at a gun show in a state where it's legal for a legal owner of a firearm to sell a firearm to whoever he wants doesn't have to happen on the grounds of the gun show. It can happen. It can happen on a Saturday night. It can happen behind a bar, behind a strip club. It can happen at Best Buy, right? In more conservative states. Right? But even conservatives, even pro-gun advocates have acknowledged that, okay, well, maybe we got to do something about that. And in those states, what do they have? You can only sell a handgun to somebody if they already have a CCW. Okay? They already have to have a permit to carry or a firearms ID card in order for you to sell it to them. In New Jersey, I can't even let somebody else hold a box of ammunition if they don't have a firearms ID card. So this argument is not even applicable in the state of New Jersey. First off, New Jersey doesn't even have gun shows, right? And this leads to point out a much bigger issue. A much bigger issue when it comes to where all the illegal guns are coming from. Most of the illegal guns, they're not coming from gun shows. Right? And the idea that you don't have to go through a background check at a gun show is absurd. They do the phone call right there. And this is what irritates me and pisses me off, because the very people who want to make these type of statements, they've never purchased a gun. They've never been through the process. They don't know anything about the process. So they listen to, CNN and MSNBC, and the next thing you know, they're spewing out facts that aren't true. That they think are facts. They think that they're saying a fact, but it's not a fact. I'm like, have you been to the Oaks in Pennsylvania? Go in there and try to buy a firearm, from a dealer without having to go through a background check. It's not going to happen. Now, whatever goes down in the parking lot, if somebody wants to sell you a firearm in the parking lot, I don't know what Pennsylvania's laws are, but I'm pretty sure they can sell you a shotgun or a rifle in the parking lot, but they cannot sell you a handgun. Handguns are it's like the regulation on handguns is completely different. You can't go across state and buy a handgun from another state. If you don't believe that, then go across into Pennsylvania and go to Gun and Archery in Philadelphia and go ahead and try to buy a firearm, and they'll tell you, oh, you can buy it, but we can only transfer it over to a dealership in New Jersey, and there you can pick it up, and there you can go through your background check, and there you can do your whole, firearms permit and purchase the permit and all that other stuff that you have to do. There you can do all that stuff. But you're not going to be able to go into Pennsylvania and walk out of the store with a handgun. You can go over there and go into Pennsylvania and go through a background check and walk out the store with a shotgun. Or you can walk out the store with a rifle that doesn't fall underneath, the stupid arbitrary, whatever, what do you want to call it? These stupid arbitrary identifiers that turn a semi-automatic rifle into an assault weapon. Like stupid things like you can't have a flash hider, but you can have a muzzle brake, right? What else can you have? You can't have a collapsible stock, which does nothing to the lethality of the gun. All it does is make it so that people of different heights and different arm lengths can adjust the length of the gun to the length of pull, for their arm. Meaning if I, hand a rifle, if we're at the range with my girlfriend and I'm a big dude. Right. So if I'm over 6 foot and my reach is different than her reach and she's only 5'5", right? That's why you have things like collapsible stock, because everybody's not the same height. But New Jersey with their one size fits all, you can't have a collapsible stock. And I mean, even the way that they describe it, the way they describe collapsible stocks, you would think that you would be able to take a rifle and shrink it down to the size of an accordion and stuff it in your pocket. Like flash hider. Oh, it's a flash hider. Oh, that means it makes you invisible to police officers. Like the flash hider has a cloaking device. It makes you harder to see as you're shooting. It's the dumbest stuff. Continuing, gun ownership is a right, but this does not mean that any American should be able to purchase a gun of any kind, anywhere, for any purpose, without any kind of guidelines. There are guidelines. Where are there not guidelines? This is not the Wild West, but even the Wild West, ordinary people were not riding around brandishing Gatling guns, which obviously is a reference to fully automatic rifles, which have been regulated since the 80s. The truth is, the background checks on firearms are not consistent all over America. I'll give this person that, okay? Because again, there are states where if a person buys a firearm legally, they can sell somebody else a firearm, secondarily, without going through a background check. That part I will acknowledge, but that's not a problem in the state of New Jersey. However, laws governing the purchase of a home boarding a plane or securing a driver's license are consistent in every state for taxes and also for public safety. You know what's funny about this person bringing up licensing? The fact that, oh, driver license are consistent in every state. Oh, but concealed carry permits are not consistent in every state. And New Jersey just tried to lock up, what's her name? What's her name? Oh, I can't think. I think it's Michelle Allen. Excuse me, not Michelle Allen. Shannon Allen. Where they try to arrest Shannon Allen because she had a permit, legal to carry a gun in the state of Pennsylvania and came into New Jersey and didn't know New Jersey's laws, and they tried to lock her up. Okay? So it's funny how we can use the driver's licenses are consistent in every state, but how come concealed carry permits are not consistent in every state? How come we have states like California, New York, Oregon, what are the states? There's a whole bunch of other states where, they recognize other states' permits, or they don't recognize other states' permits, or they only recognize permits from individuals that are residents of the state of the permit, right? So, like, your Florida permit, even, as a non-resident, doesn't work in Pennsylvania, but if you're a resident, your Florida permit works in Pennsylvania. I mean, it's just funny that this person would bring that up. Continuing, whenever background checks are mentioned, the first thing the opposition says, as also stated in the letter, NRA's noble cause is to protect our rights. Written by Pete Sesnick, it's our Second Amendment right, and this is true. The second thing they say is the government wants to take our guns. However, this is not true, and the evidence for this is that Americans have always had guns. Now, that's about the dumbest thing in the world. That's like saying racism against African Americans doesn't exist in America anymore because we don't lynch black people anymore. And then I'll even go one better than that. However, she says, or I shouldn't say she, because I don't know if it's a woman or a woman, but I really feel that this is a woman because there's too many logical inconsistencies in here. But, oh, you're a sexist. Ah! Oh, I argue with women all the time. All the time. I know the thought process. So, continuing. However, this is not true, and the evidence for this is Americans have always had guns. But what does that prove? How does that prove that there aren't those individuals who want to take people's guns away? It just means that they simply haven't been successful at doing it. It doesn't mean that they're, pulling back on their attack on the Second Amendment and in their attack on the idea of Americans possessing and having guns. Like, that doesn't prove any. See, I swear this is a woman. I swear this is a woman. But anyway, continuing. The third thing. Where's this at? The third thing, the opposition says criminals will not go through background check, will not go through a background check or register their guns. But this is the very reason why background checks are needed, to separate us from the criminals. Now, that's got to be the dumbest statement I've ever seen. Right? So originally the background checks were to what? To make sure that you were of sound mind. Now the background checks are to separate us from the criminals who don't go through the background checks. Not to mention the fact that the background checks are in place anyway. And here's the stupid thing. How are most legal guns ending up on the street as illegal guns? Straw purchase. Let's say I'm a drug dealer and I want to go and I want to buy a gun, right? Well, all I got to do is send my girlfriend to I'm the girl that I'm sleeping with, and her head's all spinning. She's in love with me. I go and I manipulate her, and then I get her to go to the dealership and say that the gun's for her, and she goes and she buys an MP5, or this is not an MP5. What am I talking about? MP40, right? Smith & Wesson MP40, and she goes and buys an MP40, and then what? Gives it to me. Voila. There's no reason for her not to pass a background check. She doesn't have a criminal background, right? She's not mentally handicapped or mentally insane, right? She's got a clean record. I don't have a clean record, so I'm not going to go in there because I'm just going to get denied. And then they're going to be all over me, looking at me. Why was I trying to buy a gun if I was a convicted felon and I knew I was a convicted felon, right? So that's a stupid process. Why would I do that? Instead, I'm going to go and get her with her squeaky clean record to go and buy it for me. And she's so in love with me that she's going to do it anyway. That's how most of these firearms are getting on the street. So regardless of the fact of having a background check, which people say, oh, it's such a deterrent, not really, because you can always have somebody who has a clean record buy something for somebody who has a record. Or excuse me, who doesn't have a, buy it for somebody who has a record. And therefore won't go through the process. Now, what I think the solution to that is stiffer penalties for people who engage in straw purchasing. Okay? Stiffer penalties for the girlfriend, meaning you just ruined your life, young lady. You're going to jail. Or the idea of them sharing equal time, which probably wouldn't be the most fair thing in the world. But if he's doing 10 years for killing, let's say, no, he's doing life for killing somebody with the gun that you purchased. Well, guess what, Missy? You're doing 15 years. You see what I'm saying? See, knowing that would be like, I'm not willing to risk that much by getting you, your firearm and doing the whole straw purchase thing. That's how it should be set up. But the way that these anti-gunners think about the whole process of background checks it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Like they think that there's all these guns that are being purchased without background checks. It's like, oh, well, you're saying that they're getting the guns from people who are selling criminals guns. I don't doubt that there are people out here in more Second Amendment liberal states, or liberal when it comes to the Second Amendment, that they're selling guns to people who shouldn't have guns. But there's also people who have there's no restrictions on why they can't have a gun, and they're being sold a gun. Meaning, I'm in I don't know, a state like Texas. I don't know what their gun laws are, but I'm saying I'm in a state like Texas, and I'm selling to a resident of the state of Texas a handgun, and I know that they're not a felon. Now, do I think that there should probably be more things in place to make sure that somebody can't just sell, a gun, an unregistered gun, to somebody else? Yes, there probably should be. Do I think that it should encompass registration? No, I don't think that it should encompass registration, because registration leads to confiscation, which goes back to the very point that this person made about, however, this is not true, and the evidence of this is that Americans have always had guns. Well, Americans have always had guns because we haven't had a process where guns have been registered so that the government knows each and every person of who has a gun. You don't know what's going to happen in the future, or when that day may come, and that day may never come in our lifetime. It could be 100 years from now. Oh, thank goodness this registration law that they put in place in 2015. Yes, and it's the year 2060 or something like that. And then whoever's in power then says, well, because of this law, it gives me the power to do this. It's like almost like the Patriot Act, right? It's like Bush put in the Patriot Act, and then Obama, does some things that people would say is questionable or out the scope of his power. But I'm like, but Bush gave him that power because Bush set the precedent that allows Obama to do things that people are looking at and raising an eyebrow at and saying, oh, well, that's questionable, right? Because once you set the precedent, you can go, oh, well, because this is the precedent, I can do this, right? And it can work in the favor of the people, and it can work against the people. Just as Plessy versus Ferguson was used to justify separate but equal, which created, decades of government sanctioned apartheid in the United States. Continuing, background checks are not to keep us from owning a gun, but it distinguishes us from those who obtain guns illegally, giving law enforcement a better chance to apprehend criminals, which makes us safer. Like, oh my God. Like, first off, how does this apply to the state of New Jersey? Most of the illegal firearms that come in that are used in the state of New Jersey, if not all of them, are used, are coming in the state from outside the state. You probably can't cite one example other than passions of crime, okay? Crimes of passion, me and my dyslexic moment. Crimes of passion where a legally purchased, registered handgun in the state of New Jersey was used in the commission of a crime such as a robbery or an assault. Now, crimes of passion, it's a little bit different because anybody can go off the deep end, which is what makes the whole, we want to keep guns out of the hands of deranged people. It's like people don't want to recognize that there's limitations even to that, because it's like, well, shit, I have firearms. I could go out here and shoot the place up tomorrow. I could do it tomorrow. And see, that's what anti-gunners don't like. They don't like the potential of somebody having the capability of doing that. Despite the fact that I could, put a butcher knife in my, in my office bag and go to the office tomorrow and, stand next to my supervisor and just immediately just start stabbing the shit out of him. Now, granted, a firearm is a much more effective tool, to engage in a massacre. But it's also a more effective tool to defend yourself against criminals and deranged people, as was stated at the beginning of this piece. Continuing. So then, should our gun laws be based solely on what criminals will or will not do? Shouldn't it be based on the safety and the well-being of all law-abiding Americans? So what this person is suggesting here is shouldn't we create these restrictions to basically prevent access of law-abiding citizens who go through background checks from firearms, when it's just stated that the criminals don't go through background checks? So in other words, you're regulating the people who are the good people, right? Now, if you want to argue you don't know who the good people are, and that's why you want people to go through background checks, that's understandable. But when you're making the statement that we need regulations on the law abiding when the criminals don't go through the regulations, that's absurd. Now, am I suggesting or saying that we don't need any regulations? No, that's not what I'm suggesting. But the problem is that there's this redundancy that goes on with the anti-gunners and the laws that they want to put in place. Like, they're not going to feel safe until all guns are banned, or guns are so restrictive and people have so little access to them that it makes the Second Amendment like essentially null and void. It's like the magazine bans. It's like, let's say I reduce the capacity of an AR-15, like Canada, to 5 bullets. Well, what is the effectiveness of an AR-15? Essentially, you've banned the firearm because you've made it, a useless object other than the 5 bullets that you have, which would undermine what was the whole Second Amendment? What was it put in place in the first place for? To safeguard the population or the people against tyranny, against the tyrannical government. Well, guess what? The tyrannical government's going to be coming at you with every damn thing on top of 30-round magazines. And here you are standing there with 5. Then, not to mention, these people who have never shot firearms, they swear it only takes 1 bullet to stop anybody. Ignoring the whole concept of there being multiple attackers. And I'm sure that there's enough YouTube videos that you can pull up online to show situations where there are multiple attackers. Not only that, but what's this recent thing that they had? I think the state was Idaho, where you had the guy, he was like deranged and he was wielding a big machete and he was kicking in this, the door had to be like cardboard. Like, it was like a cardboard box door, right? and the guy, he's in the apartment with his girlfriend. He locks the door, and you can hear the guy with the machete just, kicking in other people's apartment doors. There's all this commotion going on. You can hear it. And then, he charges in the room. And guess how many shots it takes before he goes down? 3. And to think that New Jersey wanted to reduce the capacity of the magazine down to 10, like some of these other retarded states. So if there were 3 attackers and you had to put 3 bullets in each of them, that only leaves you with 1 bullet. Better not miss. And here's the thing that gets me. It's like, why is it that the anti-gunners can come up with every horrible, horrific example of either a mass shooter or some deranged person going out there and shooting the place up? They can always imagine that. They always imagine that. But the law-abiding citizen that imagines, a criminal breaking into their house or somebody trying to rob them on the street or somebody trying to carjack them, that's paranoia. That's paranoia. But the person that's focused on mass shootings, which are far less common than the amount of assaults and robberies that go on every day that you can see it when you watch the 6 o'clock news, right? The people who losing my train of thought, the people who focus on the actual more common threat, they're paranoid. Continuing. Being our brother's keeper does not mean that we look to our neighbor who has a gun to keep us safe, but our individual rights and our established laws and those who are appointed to keep us safe. By the way, what's so noble about greed being the bottom line? So let me go back and this sentence right here. Being our brother's keeper does not mean that we look to our neighbor who has a gun to keep us safe, but our individual rights and our established laws and those who are appointed to keep us safe. See, this is basically the cops will save us. The government will save us. Right? The government that the founding fathers feared might gain too much power, right? And oppress the people, right? And it's like, I suggest to anyone to read the book The Unseen Hand, okay? And it's just to get rid of all delusions that there aren't forces out there that want to control and enslave everybody, okay? Just read the book. It's called The Unseen Hand. Go out and buy a copy of it, okay? And then tell me how much you trust your government, or you trust the state, or you trust the police. And I hate to bring up race, as I always do in this, but I swear it is a white mentality to always look at the police as, they're just great and they're going to save us and everything. It's like, you've never been knocked over the head. You've never been arrested. You've never, even felt, not that I've individually been knocked over the head, but you've never felt, there's no historical context of, the state being thrust upon Caucasian people in America. Like, you have to go to like isolated incidences like Kent State or the what's the other thing? The Wall Street thing. What was that? The where the 99%. Like, you have to go to situations like that in order for people to see it. Like, anybody who sits there and says, I just trust the police. And then not only I trust the police with the just the utmost, but to take it where it needs to go, the police are not obligated, to be there or rescue you or save you. If you don't like, if let's say something happens and the police don't get there in time because some criminal broke into your house and killed your family member, you can't go and sue the police and say they didn't get there fast enough or they took too long. You can't do that. They're not obligated to be there at a moment's notice. Right? I mean, that's just an unrealistic and unreasonable expectation. But this is the type of person who typically makes a lot of money, lives in a nice neighborhood, lives in a gated community, right? And walks around with this sort of like naivete where they live in a fantasy world, where people who possess firearms are deranged, paranoid, or criminal. And that makes them uncomfortable, and they don't like that idea. And that's really all it comes down to, because, when people have, and people are wealthy and successful and everything, and they can, and the police are basically like in the city of New York, where the police are nothing more than the bodyguards, for the white wealthy elite of New York City. Those people don't want everybody else having access to guns. That's why New York has the crazy Bloomberg type of laws that it has. Okay? Because the government, which is bought by the people who own the businesses and the corporations and the banks and all that and have all that wealth, the government works for those people. They don't even work for the people in mass. No, the people in mass, they're convinced of, that it's all about the people and everything, and they do that all during the, the political campaigns and whatnot. But at the end of the day, when you have everything, after the elected official wins, it's a plutocracy. It's not a democracy. It's controlled by the bureaucratic elite. It's not controlled by the people. And for the people to sit around, let's just say the author of this article is a common person, a regular person, a normal person. It blows my mind that you have people who, they're not even in that elite category, but they sit around and believe that, these police are put in place to serve them. No, actually they're there to serve, the elite. If you live in such and such a neighborhood, if you live in an area that doesn't have so much income or whatever, the police may take a little bit longer to get there. Oh, but let something go down in downtown Manhattan, they'll send the whole police force. They'll send the whole SWAT team. And when the haves and the elites are screwing everybody over, you damn right they don't want a nation of people who may wake up one day and realize that they're being screwed over and overthrow them or, change the system, as it is. Right? Like, what did Thomas Jefferson said? Every so often the tree of liberty has to be refreshed with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Right? Paraphrasing. And I'm not one to advocate for revolution and whatnot, but the Second Amendment being in place as it is to safeguard. It's a balance of power, checks and balances, no more than the president with the judiciary branch and the legislative branch. No more than that. Checks and balances. And when you have a population of people where, they have no means of defending themselves, at that point the government can do whatever the government wants to do. Okay, the government can do whatever it wants to do. And I don't want to hear anything about, oh, yeah, but they have atomic weapons and tanks and everything else. I don't see us winning in the Middle East anytime soon, or in Afghanistan. Been there for 10 years with all the superior military might. It's almost impossible, to unless you eradicate everybody, it's almost impossible to try to control a population like that without having boots on the ground. Period. And then constantly, every day, being vigilant and oppressing those people every single day, to try to keep them in their lane. And there will be resistant fighters and everything else, and hopefully America never gets to that point. But I'm saying the Second Amendment ensures that it won't get to that point. But I don't know what these anti-gunners don't get about that. They're so fearful of the minority situations, the mass shootings. That what they ignore is the constant threat of tyranny that will always exist. And what they also ignore is the criminal element of the basic fact that cops are not walking on every street corner. Okay? Cops are not going to be there at every moment. You know, cops respond to criminal activity. Cops respond to violent activity. Cops do not, it's not Minority Report where they preemptively get there and whatnot, and you're sitting next to somebody and 30 seconds before they were about to stab you, the cops show up and say, we're arresting you for thought crime because you were thinking about killing your wife. That's not how it happens. Continuing, last paragraph, last point. Oh, this is a guy. It is a guy. Bill Thompson thinks like a woman. Don't even get me started on effeminate men. To compare Nazi Germany to America in any way is futility. Yes, Hitler was elected, but that's where any attempted comparison ends. No, it doesn't end there. It ends with the fact that he enacted I don't know if I forget what it was called, but it was the Germany, Gun Control Act, and then they had registration, and then after registration came confiscation. Hitler quickly began to nullify existing laws in Germany, and with a vengeance, he immediately went after the Jewish people to annihilate them all. Oh my God. To annihilate them all. Damn. Don't you wish that the Jews had, I'm sure the Jews wish that they had, guns to defend themselves when all that went down. No law is changed in the U.S. dictatorial mandate, nor, I believe, will be as long as we remain a godly nation. See, oh my God. This has nothing to do with God. This has got to be one of these heeding God's call people. The anti-Second Amendment, heeding God's call. And what's so stupid about the whole heeding God's call, and we're so against violence. For the Christians out there, the Christian God of biblical times was one of the most violent gods that ever existed. I mean, just eradicating whole cities because he was pissed off. Sodom and Gomorrah, eradicate the whole city, and don't you dare look back or I'll turn you to dust. But yet, heeding God's call, because it's all about being Christ-like and, bending over and doing like Job and taking it in the ass with a smile. Because, I'll for the person that tries to attack me, I'll just simply pray for them while they stab me to death. I repeat, citizens, having guns does not make us free, but following the Constitution constructed and written to mimic the Holy Bible in its precepts. Oh, this is one of these God's call people. In these precepts, by its 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, modified after the 10 commandments, God's perfect moral law in its pattern. This is so... I hate when people go dive into religion like religion has... First off, this is why the Founding Fathers created separation of church and state. Second off, the Founding Fathers, many of them were Freemasons, and if you go into the whole idea and concept of Freemasons were very much against the church. They didn't like the church. They wanted to get rid of the concepts of... Where's this at? The concepts of... Hold on, I'm actually gonna pull up this quote. Here we go. Perhaps the beginning of the American Revolution, this is in the unseen hand, perhaps the beginning of the American Revolution can be traced back to June 24th, 1717, when 4 Masonic lodges united in London, England, to form the Grand Lodge of London, the basic tenet of the new Freemasonry, which up to that time was generally that a guild of stonemasons and other builders changed the church a religion. It changed from a professional masonry to a philosophical masonry. The inherent philosophy of Freemasonry implied a belief that mystic thought and feeling were bound to disappear and to be replaced by a strictly logical and rational era. Freemasonry tried to incorporate with the church So as to be able to work from the inside, rationalize the doctrine of Jesus and empty it gradually of its mystic content. Freemasonry hoped to become a friendly and legal heir to Christianity. They considered logic and the rules of scientific thinking as being the only absolute and permanent element of the human mind. The new Masonry did not defend revelation, dogmas or faith. Its conviction was scientific and its morality purely social. The new Masonry did not aim to destroy churches, but with the aid of the progress in ideas, it prepared to replace them. The new morality spread to France in 1725 and a few years later in the early 1730s to the United States, where lodges of the Freemasons were formed in Philadelphia in 1731, as in Boston in 1733. One of the well-known members of the Philadelphia Lodge was Benjamin Franklin, who joined in 1732. Mr. Franklin later became Grand Master, the equivalent of president of his lodge, in 1734. It was in this Philadelphia Lodge that started the move to confederate the various colonies in America into a union of the states. And that is from The Unseen Hand. So when people try to say, "Oh, America was founded on Christian values," the founding fathers, especially Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, he was a deist. Okay, most of them were deist, which is borderline being agnostic. You know, your basis isn't Christianity. That's where you're coming from. But you get away from all of the fanatical mysticism of Christianity, and you start looking at things logically, even though Christianity was your original foundation. But you're not into the mysticism. You're not into the whole faith aspect and all that other stuff. So continuing, I repeat, citizens having guns does not make us free. Actually, it does make us free, which is why they put it in there in the first place. But following a constitution constructed and written to mimic the Holy Bible in its precepts by its 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights modified after the 10 commandments, God's perfect moral law in its pattern. See, this is like a person that doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that there's evil in the world. Okay? Well, if we all would just embrace the buttery goodness of Christ, everything would be fine. Right? But that's not how the world operates. You know, and I'm saying the same people who want to talk this crap are the same people who, when you get the conversations about there being economic parity and how most of the crime is economic crime, because if you put people in situations where they're starving and struggling, you're going to have more crime. And you're not going to have people who are going to follow all the social morals and all this other stuff when they're starving, when they're struggling. You know, but you start talking about money, you start talking about jobs, you start talking about, spreading and sharing the wealth. They ain't trying to hear that. What they want is they want people to accept their lot in life. Oh, here's a Bible, poor inner city black person. Yes, here's a Bible, and despite the fact that you're poor, despite the fact that you're struggling, despite the fact that there's no economic opportunities, we want you to act and behave and operate the same as those good white folks in the suburbs who have substantially more wealth than you do and can plan their future and take vacations and do things that wouldn't have them stressed out and basically losing their mind in that situation. We want you to act and behave just like them, because it's not about money. It's not about material possessions. It's all about Christ and the buttery goodness of the Lord. Don't even get me started on the church and how the church has hindered the African American community in terms of progressing and doing many of the things that they need to do in order to economically compete in the United States. Don't even get me started. Continuing, even the Pentagon itself mimics the Pentateuch, I don't even know how to say that, being 5-sided in its design and construction. The how do you say that? Pentateuch. I'm gonna have to go to dictionary.com. In the 5 books of law written by Moses and 5/5 of the law in the Hebrew tradition. We must remember that without the background check when purchasing a gun, there is no way to distinguish criminals with guns from the rest of us until they break the law by using their illegal weapons on us. Again, stupid, because this person fears the idea of legal people. You know, I mean, it's like, if the idea is that background checks solve everything, or solve most of it, or make you feel more comfortable, then when people have guns, you shouldn't have any issue with it because they went through a background check. The only people that you should focus on and have an issue with are the criminals, because they didn't go through a background check, so you don't know what their state of mind is, right? But then the conversation will be, well, we should ban all guns because even if somebody goes through a background check, you know, there's no telling when they might snap and then shoot the place up. So we don't want them to have guns. So you just don't want guns to exist. It's not a matter of the fact that it's all about the background check, because it's not about the background check. It's about the fact that you don't want anybody to have guns. You're just saying this to entertain the conversation because you know that we should ban all guns isn't going to go over very well. We should get rid of the Second Amendment isn't going to go over very well. Which is why, in my mind, these people are cowards. Because if that's what they want, then you should just have the balls, right, to come out and say it. Right? You should have the courage, like Christ, to come out and say it. But they don't have the courage to come out and say it. They don't know. They know that it's not going to go over well. But anyway, Bill Thomas, the effeminate anti-gunner from Piscataway, you know, that's what his argument was, and that's what he said, and that's why, you know, when I got through like 3/4 of it, and I just, you know, lost it. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. There's so many contradictions in this piece, it's not even funny. But anyway, that's from mycentraljersey.com. You know, and just as I always have to throw race into the conversation, he's always got to throw, you know, Christ in there. Like, he could have, all his points would have been the same without throwing in Christ, without throwing in the Bible, which has no basis in the Second Amendment, which is exactly why there's separation of church and state. Anyway, that's my video. New Jersey gun laws out.